I didn't know that a quiet Sunday dinner would decide where I stood in my own family. I thought it was just another meal, another polite evening where I smiled, nodded, and ignored the small familiar feeling that I mattered less. I didn't know that by the time dessert was cleared, my wedding, my relationship, and 23 years of silent comparisons would be laid bare in front of everyone. We were sitting at the old oak dining table, the one we'd eaten at since childhood. My parents sat across from me, my sister Sarah beside them, her fiancé Bradley at her side. Marcus sat next to me, calm as always, his hand resting lightly near mine. The room smelled like roast chicken and rosemary. Everything looked normal. That was the worst part. Dad cleared his throat and reached under the table. When he brought his hand back up, he was holding a plain white envelope. Thick, heavy. My heart jumped before I could stop it. I already knew what it was. I had known for months. He slid the envelope across the table. Not to me. It stopped in front of Sarah. We gave your wedding fund to your sister, Dad said. She deserves a real wedding. The words landed slowly, one after another, like they needed time to sink in. Mom nodded beside him, already prepared, already in agreement. Sarah's lips curved into a small smile that she didn't try very hard to hide. I didn't move, I didn't speak, I just stared at the envelope. $10,000. The money they promised me 6 months ago. The money Marcus and I planned around. The money I counted every time we talked about venues, guest lists, and how to keep things simple. Gone. Marcus turned slightly toward me. I felt his fingers find mine under the table, steady, warm. He didn't say anything. He was listening. Dad leaned back in his chair, his expression shifting into the familiar one I knew too well. The one he wore before explaining why something unfair was actually reasonable. You have to understand, he said. Sarah has worked very hard to build her life. Sarah straightened in her chair. Her blazer was perfect. Her hair didn't move. Everything about her looked polished, finished, like she'd already arrived somewhere I was still trying to reach. She graduated from Northwestern, Mom added. She has a real career, a real future. I swallowed, my mouth felt dry. And Bradley, Dad continued, gesturing toward my sister's fiancé, comes from a solid family. He's established, stable. Bradley nodded once, satisfied. Then Dad's eyes shifted to me. You went to community college, he said, not unkindly but not gently either. You freelance, you struggle. The word struggle sat there, ugly and exposed. Mom glanced at Marcus. We don't really know what he does, she said. You're always vague when we ask. I turned my head slightly toward Marcus, a flicker of doubt slipping in despite myself. He had always said he worked in technology, nothing more. I had never pushed. I trusted him. We're just being practical, Dad said. We don't want to throw good money after bad. That sentence hurt more than anything else. Sarah leaned forward, her engagement ring catching the light. I've always been responsible, she said. Savings, credit, planning. I finally spoke. What about me? Dad sighed. Your foundation is shaky. I looked around the room. Family photos lined the walls. In most of them, Sarah was centered. I was usually off to the side. Marcus squeezed my hand again. Then he pushed his chair back and stood. The sound of the chair scraping against the floor cut through the room. He reached into his pocket and took out his phone. Should I tell them what I do for a living? He asked. He was looking at me. And for the first time since dinner began, I realized I didn't know the answer. The room went completely still after Marcus spoke. No one answered him. Dad's hand froze around his glass. Mom's eyes moved from Marcus to me, searching my face for something she could use to steady herself. Sarah's smile faded, but only slightly, as if she was confident whatever came next wouldn't really matter. What do you mean? I asked quietly. I wasn't angry yet. I was confused. I suddenly felt like I was standing on unfamiliar ground. Marcus didn't answer me right away. He unlocked his phone, tapped the screen once, then turned it toward the table. I leaned forward before I could stop myself. At the top of the screen was a clean, professional website, dark background, sharp lines, a company logo I had never seen before. Cloud Vault Solutions, Marcus said. I'm the founder. Sarah frowned. Founder of what? A data security company, he replied calmly. Dad set his glass down slowly. A company. Yes, Marcus said. I started it 5 years ago. Mom blinked. 5 years. He nodded. In my garage. The air in the room changed. I could feel it, like pressure building. Marcus scrolled. Photos appeared. Offices, teams of people, conference rooms, a version of Marcus in a tailored suit standing beside people I didn't recognize but who clearly mattered. We provide cybersecurity services to large corporations, he said. Hospitals, banks, retail chains. Sarah's mouth opened, then closed again. Dad leaned forward now. How large? We have 237 employees, Marcus replied. 4 offices. Bradley shifted in his seat. 4. Dallas, Atlanta, Denver, Austin. I stared at the screen. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Marcus kept scrolling. News articles, awards, interviews. We went public last month, he said. Current valuation is 47 million. The number didn't make sense. My brain rejected it. 47 million. Mom dropped her fork. It clattered loudly against the plate, the sound far too sharp for how quiet the room had become. Sarah's face drained of color. Dad cleared his throat, but no sound came out. You drive a Honda, Sarah said weakly. Marcus smiled slightly. It works. I finally found my voice. Why didn't you tell me? He turned to me, his expression softening. Because I wanted to be sure, he said, that you loved me without the money. Dad stood halfway out of his chair, then sat back down again. We had no idea, he said. No idea at all. That much is clear, Marcus replied. Sarah laughed once sharply. This is ridiculous. Marcus tapped the screen again and turned it back toward them. You might recognize this, he said. It was a news article, his face, a headline naming him Entrepreneur of the Year. Mom pressed her hand to her mouth. We sponsor Austin FC, Marcus added. Our ads run during the evening news. Mom's eyes widened. That's you. Yes. Bradley stared at the phone as if it might explode. So, Marcus said, locking the screen and slipping the phone back into his pocket, about judging people. No one spoke. Dad finally leaned forward. We were just trying to be sensible. Sensible would have been asking, Marcus said. Sarah's fingers tightened around the envelope. I realized something then. This wasn't about money anymore. This was about power. And it had just changed hands. No one knew what to do next. The room felt smaller, tighter, like the walls had moved in while we weren't paying attention. Dad kept opening his mouth as if to speak, then closing it again. Mom folded and unfolded her napkin, her hands no longer steady. Sarah was still gripping the envelope, her knuckles pale. Well, Dad finally said, forcing a short laugh, this certainly changes things. Marcus didn't respond. Mom leaned forward. Marcus, honey, we just meant. You meant exactly what you said, Marcus replied calmly. You said your decision was based on stability and success. Dad nodded quickly. Yes, but now that we understand your situation. Our situation didn't change, Marcus said. Your understanding did. Silence again. Sarah pushed her chair back slightly. So what? She said, her voice tight. Now we're supposed to pretend this never happened. Dad turned toward her. Sarah, that's not. It is, she snapped. They're acting like we committed a crime. Marcus finally looked directly at her. You accepted money that was promised to someone else. Sarah's eyes flashed, because I was told it was mine. Dad raised his hands. Let's slow down. No one is accusing anyone of anything. I laughed softly. It surprised even me. Dad looked at me. Shelby, please. For once, I said, let's not pretend. Mom's eyes filled. We were trying to help you both. You help the daughter you always help, I replied. Sarah shook her head. You're being dramatic. I turned to her. You knew. Her jaw tightened. I knew they were reconsidering. That's not the same thing, Dad said quickly. It is when the envelope is already printed, I said, nodding toward the table. Marcus stepped back slightly, giving me space. He wasn't taking over. He was letting me speak. Dad sighed. Fine, maybe we handled it poorly, but we can fix this. Sarah sat up straighter. What do you mean fix? We could split the money, Mom suggested. 5,000 each. Sarah's chair scraped loudly as she stood. Absolutely not. Dad looked startled. Sarah. I've already paid deposits, she said sharply. I'm not undoing everything because they're embarrassed. Marcus folded his arms. So the answer is no. Yes, Sarah said, the answer is no. The word hung in the air. Bradley cleared his throat. Maybe we should talk about this privately. Sarah turned on him. Don't start. Dad rubbed his temples. This is getting out of hand. I stood up slowly. My legs felt steady in a way they never had before in this house. You already chose, I said. I just finally understand it. Mom reached for me. Shelby. I stepped back. Marcus moved beside me. We'll be leaving. Dad shot to his feet. Wait. Marcus paused, but didn't turn around. Dad swallowed. We didn't know who you were. Marcus looked over his shoulder. That was your choice. We walked toward the door. Behind us, Sarah shouted, you can't just walk out. I stopped, turned, and met her eyes. We already did, I said. We didn't make it to the driveway. Dad's voice followed us down the hallway, louder now, edged with panic. Marcus, wait, please. Marcus stopped at the front door. I could feel the tension in his shoulders, controlled but real. He turned slowly, not angry, just alert. Dad hurried toward us. Let's not do something we can't take back. Marcus glanced at me first. Do you want to stay? I hesitated, then I nodded once. Not because I wanted to fix anything, but because I wanted to hear the rest. We returned to the dining room. The table looked different now. The plates half cleared, the envelope still sitting in front of Sarah like evidence no one wanted to touch. Dad gestured toward the chairs. Please. Marcus remained standing. I stayed beside him. Mom spoke softly. This escalated so fast. It didn't, Marcus said. It was always there. Sarah crossed her arms. So what is this, she said. A lecture. No, Marcus replied. A line. Dad frowned. A line. Yes, Marcus said. Between how you treat people you think matter and people you don't. Sarah scoffed. That's not fair. Marcus looked at her. You benefited from it. Her cheeks flushed. I earned it. Then why are you afraid to give it back? He asked. The question landed hard. Bradley shifted. Maybe we should all calm down. Marcus finally looked at him. You agreed with them. Bradley stiffened. You nodded, Marcus said. You didn't hesitate. Bradley looked away. Mom's voice cracked. We raised you both the same. I laughed quietly. You really didn't. Dad straightened. We did our best. Your best had a favorite, I said. Sarah slammed her hand on the table. I didn't ask to be better. I turned to her. You didn't have to. The room fell silent again. Dad inhaled deeply. Marcus, he said carefully, we misjudged you, we admit that. Marcus nodded. That part is obvious. And we're sorry, Mom added quickly. Marcus didn't respond. So, Dad continued, what do you want? Marcus didn't answer right away. He looked at me. I realized then that this wasn't about convincing them. This was about seeing who they really were when they didn't have control. I want the truth, I said. Mom blinked. About what? About why it was so easy, I said. Why you didn't even pause. Dad looked down. Sarah's life made more sense to us. There it was. Mine didn't, I said. Dad nodded slowly. We were afraid. Of what? I asked. That you'd fail, Mom whispered. I felt something inside me settle, not relief, clarity. Marcus stepped forward. Fear doesn't excuse cruelty. Sarah laughed bitterly. So now you're judging us. Yes, Marcus said, because you judged first. Dad rubbed his face. We can still make this right. Sarah spun toward him. Don't. Dad ignored her. We can give Shelby the money back. Sarah's head snapped up. No. Dad raised his voice. Enough. She froze. You took what wasn't yours, Dad said, suddenly firm, and now we're paying for it. Sarah's eyes filled, not with regret but with panic. I already spent it, she said. The words changed everything. Marcus's expression didn't shift. Mine did. The room reacted before anyone spoke. Mom covered her mouth. Dad stared at Sarah as if he hadn't heard her correctly. Bradley straightened in his chair, his face tightening. You spent it, Dad asked. Sarah swallowed. Deposits non-refundable. How much? Mom whispered. All of it, Sarah said, every dollar. The silence that followed felt heavier than anything before it. Marcus exhaled slowly. He wasn't angry. That was somehow worse. So there was never a question, he said. You weren't choosing, you were informing. Sarah lifted her chin. I did what I had to do. You did what you wanted to do, I said. She looked at me, eyes sharp. You would have done the same. No, I replied. I would have asked. Dad sank back into his chair. You told us you just needed confirmation. I needed security, Sarah said. I couldn't risk looking foolish. Mom's voice trembled. You risked your sister. Sarah turned away. Marcus spoke again, steady and controlled. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a decision followed by damage control. Bradley finally spoke. Sarah, you said everything was tentative. She shot him a look. I said what I needed to say. Bradley's jaw clenched. That money wasn't yours. It is now, she snapped. Marcus folded his arms. Money doesn't change ownership because it's convenient. Dad stood abruptly. Enough, this has gone too far. Sarah looked at him. You gave it to me. I gave it to you because you told me it was necessary, Dad said. You lied. Her voice dropped. You would have given it to me anyway. That landed like a slap. Dad didn't deny it. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Not sadness, finality. Marcus turned to me. Do you want to hear what I was planning to say before we left? I nodded. I was going to let this end quietly, he said, but now I think clarity matters. He pulled his phone out again. Sarah groaned, not this again. Marcus ignored her. He tapped the screen and held it out to me first. Images filled the display. A stone estate, vineyards, courtyards, sunlight. I've been planning our wedding for 3 months, he said softly. I wanted it to be a surprise. My breath caught. He turned the screen slightly so the others could see. This venue is reserved, he continued. Catering confirmed, guest list finalized. Mom stared. Marcus. The budget is $78,000, he said. Sarah let out a broken sound that might have been a laugh. Dad looked physically ill. This wasn't about needing your money, Marcus said. It was about watching how you treated her when you thought she had nothing. He slipped the phone back into his pocket. Sarah's voice shook. This isn't fair. Marcus met her eyes. Neither was tonight. Bradley looked at Sarah, then at the table. We can't afford our wedding. Sarah turned on him. Don't say that. We can't, he repeated. Not anymore. Mom whispered my name. Shelby. I looked at her. You didn't choose me. Dad's shoulders slumped. Marcus took my hand. We're done here. No one stopped us this time. As the door closed behind us, I heard Sarah crying. And for the first time, it didn't pull me back. We didn't speak on the drive home. The city lights blurred past the windows as Marcus drove, one hand steady on the wheel, the other resting loosely near mine. My mind replayed the night in fragments. The envelope, Sarah's voice, the moment she admitted she'd spent the money. I should have told you sooner, Marcus said finally. I shook my head. You protected yourself. And you, he said. I leaned back against the seat. I don't know how I feel yet. That's okay. By the time we reached his place, my phone was already buzzing. Missed calls, messages, I didn't open them. 2 days passed before I heard from my parents again. Dad called first. I let it go to voicemail. Then Mom, then Sarah. On the 3rd day, Sarah texted. We need to talk. I stared at the screen for a long time before responding. About what? Her reply came quickly. Everything is falling apart. I didn't answer. That evening, Marcus showed me the full wedding plan, not to impress me, just to include me, the choices, the timing, the guest list. It felt unreal. I wanted you to feel chosen, he said. I did. The next morning, Dad showed up at my door. He looked smaller than I remembered, tired, his confidence had cracked. I'm not here to argue, he said. I'm here to apologize. I crossed my arms. For what exactly? For believing appearances, he said. For not asking questions. For thinking success only looked one way. I waited. For choosing Sarah, he added. The words felt heavy, but honest. I can't undo it, he said. but I see it now. I nodded once. That doesn't fix everything. I know. Later that night, Marcus received an email. He read it twice before showing me. Henderson Global. Sarah's company. They were requesting a contract review meeting. Marcus's expression didn't change, but I felt the shift. They found out, I said. They always do, he replied. The meeting was scheduled for the following week. Meanwhile, Sarah's messages became frantic. Vendors backing out, costs increasing, deposits lost, Bradley's parents pulling support. Then a voice message. She was crying. I didn't think it would go this far, she said. I didn't think anyone would care. I deleted it without replying. 2 days later, she called again. This time I answered. We're losing the venue, she said. They doubled the price. That's not my problem, I replied. I know, she whispered, but I don't know what to do. Silence stretched between us. Finally, she said, can Marcus help? There it was. I closed my eyes. This isn't about money, I said. I know, she replied quickly. I know, I don't have anyone else. I ended the call without promising anything. That night, Marcus asked me, what do you want to do? I looked at him. I want them to finally understand consequences. He nodded, then we wait. And for the first time in my life, waiting felt powerful. Waiting didn't take long. By the end of the week, the story had moved beyond our family. It always does. Someone talks, someone hints, pieces get filled in. By Friday afternoon, my phone buzzed with a message from a cousin I barely spoke to. Heard things got intense at Sunday dinner. You okay? I didn't reply. That night, Sarah showed up at my door. I almost didn't open it. She looked nothing like she had at the dinner. No blazer, no perfect hair. Her eyes were swollen, makeup smeared like she'd tried to fix it and failed. She held her phone in one hand like it was the only thing keeping her upright. Please, she said before I could speak. Marcus stayed back, giving us space but not leaving. Sarah stepped inside slowly, like she was afraid I'd change my mind. They canceled the photographer, she said. The caterer wants full payment up front. Bradley's parents won't return my calls. I leaned against the counter, and the venue wants $18,000 now, she whispered, or they terminate the contract. I waited. She swallowed. I don't have it. You spent the money, I said. I thought I could fix it later, she snapped, then immediately softened. I didn't think you'd walk away. That hurt more than the rest. I didn't think I had to beg my family to treat me fairly, I said. She looked down. I didn't think you'd win. The word sat between us, ugly and honest. This isn't a competition, I said. It always has been, she replied quietly. You just stopped playing. Marcus shifted slightly behind me. Sarah noticed him for the first time since entering. Can you talk to him? She asked. Please. I shook my head. You haven't even apologized. Her mouth opened, then closed. I'm sorry you feel hurt. I laughed once. No. She flinched. I'm sorry I took the money. That's closer. She nodded, tears spilling now. I didn't think you mattered more than the plan. There it was again. The plan. Marcus stepped forward. I won't interfere, he said calmly. Not in your wedding, not in your career. Sarah's face crumpled. Then everything is gone. Marcus didn't respond. She turned back to me. I need help. I crossed my arms. What you need is to accept that not everything can be saved. Her breathing quickened. Bradley is talking about postponing. That sounds reasonable. She shook her head violently. If we postpone, everyone will know. They already do, I said. She sank onto the couch, covering her face. I was supposed to be the one who did everything right, she said through her hands. Marcus looked at her. You did what looked right. She looked up at him, eyes red. What's the difference? He answered without hesitation. Integrity. Silence filled the room. Sarah stood slowly. So that's it. Yes, I said. At the door, she paused. If you ever needed me. I didn't answer. When the door closed, Marcus took my hand. They're learning, he said. I nodded. I just wish it didn't take losing everything. He squeezed my fingers gently. Some people only hear consequences. Outside, my phone buzzed again. Another message. This time from Dad. We need to talk, now. I stared at the screen. The fallout wasn't over. Dad didn't wait for an answer. He arrived an hour later, Mom behind him, both of them tense in that careful way people get when they already know they're wrong but still hope to control the outcome. They sat on the edge of the couch, hands folded, eyes darting between me and Marcus. We're in trouble, Mom said quietly. Dad nodded, financially. I didn't react. The bank won't approve a loan, Dad continued. Too much existing debt, we thought we had more room than we do. Marcus listened without expression. We gave Sarah that money because we thought it would stabilize things, Mom said. We didn't realize how thin everything already was. I crossed my legs slowly. You didn't realize because you didn't ask. Dad exhaled, you're right. They sat in silence for a moment, then Mom said what she'd come to say. We need your help. There it was again. With what? I asked. With keeping this from becoming worse, Dad said. People are talking, family, friends. It's making us look careless. I almost smiled. Marcus finally spoke. You're worried about appearances. Dad winced. We're worried about fallout. Same thing, Marcus replied. Mom's eyes filled. Sarah's career could be damaged. I looked at her. You were willing to damage mine. That was different, she said quickly, then stopped herself. Her voice dropped. No, it wasn't. Marcus leaned forward slightly. Let me be clear. I will not intervene with vendors, employers, or contracts. Dad nodded quickly. We understand. I won't make calls. I won't smooth things over, Marcus continued. And I won't pretend this was a misunderstanding. Mom wiped her eyes. Then what do we do? Marcus looked at me. I took a breath. You sit with it. They both looked confused. You sit with what you did, I said. You don't rush to fix it because now it's uncomfortable. Dad stared at the floor. This doesn't end tonight, I added. And it doesn't end because Marcus has money or influence. Mom nodded slowly. We also want to talk about your wedding, Dad said. We want to help. I laughed softly. You already decided how much help I deserved. Dad's shoulders sagged. I know. Marcus stood. It's late. Dad rose too. Before we go, there's something you should know. I waited. Henderson Global reached out, he said. They called your mother, asked about family dynamics. Mom nodded. They were polite but firm. Marcus's eyes sharpened slightly. They wanted reassurance, Dad continued, that there weren't ongoing issues that could reflect poorly. I felt the shift immediately. They're worried about Sarah, Mom said. And about you, Dad added, glancing at Marcus. About whether this situation could escalate. Marcus's voice was calm. It already has. When my parents left, the apartment felt quieter than before. Marcus poured 2 glasses of water and handed me one. They're scared, I said. They should be, he replied. I leaned back against the counter. This isn't over. No, Marcus said. This is the part where things settle into place. My phone buzzed. A calendar invite. Henderson Global, contract review meeting. Next Thursday. I looked at Marcus. He nodded once. They're choosing sides. And for the first time, I realized this story wasn't just about family anymore. The week before the meeting passed slowly. Too slowly. Sarah stopped calling. That worried me more than her panic. Silence meant she was regrouping, not healing. Mom sent short messages that said nothing. Dad sent articles about family and forgiveness that I didn't open. Marcus didn't mention the meeting unless I did. He went to work like nothing had changed. Calls, emails, calm routines. It was unsettling how untouched his world seemed by the chaos mine had fallen into. The night before Thursday, Sarah called. I almost ignored it. Shelby, she said the moment I answered. Her voice was steadier now, controlled. I need to know what you've told him. Told who? I asked. You know who. I haven't told Marcus anything that didn't already happen. She exhaled sharply. They're reviewing my department. That got my attention. Henderson pulled 3 accounts this week, she continued. Internal audits, budget freezes, everyone's nervous. I leaned against the wall. What does that have to do with me? She hesitated. They know you're engaged to him. Of course they did. They asked if there was a conflict, Sarah said, if family issues could affect vendor relationships. And I asked. I said no, she replied quickly. I said everything was fine. I closed my eyes. Why are you calling me? I asked. Because I need to know if it really is, she said. I didn't answer right away. Marcus walked into the room then, phone in hand. He glanced at me, reading my face instantly. Henderson, he asked quietly. I nodded. Sarah heard him, put me on speaker. I did. Marcus spoke calmly. Hello, Sarah. There was a pause. Hi, Marcus. I want to be clear, he said. I haven't contacted your company about anything unrelated to business. I know, she said quickly. They're scared. They should focus on performance, Marcus replied. That's all that matters. Her voice dropped, and us. Marcus didn't hesitate. That's separate. She swallowed. You could ruin me. Marcus's tone stayed level. You ruined yourself when you chose optics over people. Silence. I'm asking you not to hurt me, Sarah said. I'm not hurting you, he replied. I'm refusing to protect you. The difference mattered. After the call ended, I sat down heavily. I didn't want it to touch her career, I said. It already did, Marcus replied. Not because of me, because of how she behaved when she thought no one was watching. The next morning, Henderson Global's office felt colder than I expected. Glass, steel, quiet hallways. Marcus walked beside me composed, confident. He belonged here in a way my family never understood. The meeting room filled slowly. Executives, legal, operations. Then Sarah walked in. She froze when she saw me. No one introduced us. Marcus took his seat at the head of the table. The meeting began with numbers, security metrics, performance graphs. Then the questions shifted. Are there any conflicts of interest we should be aware of? Someone asked. Marcus answered first. There are family tensions. They do not affect our service. Eyes turned to Sarah. She nodded stiffly. I agree. The silence that followed was unbearable. The meeting ended without a decision. But the damage was already done. As we left the building, Sarah caught my arm. You could have stopped this, she whispered. I looked at her. You could have too. She let go. For the first time, she looked afraid of the future instead of confident in it. And I realized something. This wasn't revenge. This was consequence finally catching up. The decision came 3 days later. Marcus didn't tell me right away. He waited until dinner, until we were sitting across from each other with plates half finished, like normal people on a normal night. Then he slid his phone across the table. Henderson Global, contract amendment notice. I read it once, then again. They're restructuring, he said, reducing scope, transitioning part of the work in-house. What does that mean? I asked, though I already knew. It means Sarah's department loses influence, Marcus replied, and budget. I felt a tight knot form in my chest. Did you push this? No, he said immediately. They initiated it. Because of us. Because of risk, he corrected, and perception. The word sat heavy between us. That night, Sarah sent one last message. They moved me off the account. I stared at the screen for a long time before replying. I'm sorry. She responded almost instantly. No, you're not. I didn't argue. The next weekend, my parents asked to meet. Neutral ground. A quiet cafe halfway between our places. They arrived early, already seated, already braced. Dad didn't waste time. Sarah's been demoted. Mom's hands trembled around her cup. They say it's temporary. I nodded slowly. They always say that. She blames us, Dad said, and you. I met his eyes. She should. Mom flinched. Shelby. You taught her that winning mattered more than fairness, I said. That appearances mattered more than people. Dad swallowed. We didn't think. That's the problem, I replied. You never did. Silence settled in. We're trying to fix things, Mom said finally. With Sarah, I asked. With ourselves, she said. I believed her, not because she deserved forgiveness, but because she looked tired in a way that couldn't be faked. Later that night, Sarah called. I lost the venue, she said flatly. I know. We're getting married at the church hall. I waited. Bradley says we should be grateful, she continued, that this will make us stronger. And do you believe him? I asked. She laughed softly. I don't know what I believe anymore. There was a long pause. I used to think if I did everything right, nothing bad could touch me, she said. Now I feel exposed. I leaned back against the couch. That's what equality feels like. She didn't respond. A week later, wedding magazines contacted Marcus. Requests, features, interviews. Our story, stripped of names and details, was already circulating in business circles. Sarah saw it online before I did. You always hated attention, she texted. Funny how it found you anyway. I didn't reply. The night before our invitations went out, Marcus asked me, do you want them there? I knew who he meant. I took a long breath. Yes, I said, but they come as guests, not judges. He nodded, then that's how it will be. Outside, the city hummed like nothing had changed. But everything had. The invitations went out on a Monday. Cream cardstock, simple lettering, no explanations, no apologies, just names, dates, a place that felt unreal even printed on paper. By Wednesday, the calls started. First from my aunt, then a cousin, then someone I barely recognized by voice. Each conversation followed the same pattern: polite opening, casual curiosity, then the question they really wanted answered. Is it true? I stopped correcting them. Sarah didn't call. Bradley did. I don't know why I'm calling you, he said. Things are tense. They should be, I replied. He hesitated. She's angry all the time. At me, I asked. At everyone, he said, at the world. I pictured her apartment filled with half-packed boxes and discarded plans. Anger needs somewhere to land, I said. She thinks you enjoyed this. I didn't deny it. I enjoyed not being small. He was quiet. That makes sense. The next morning, Mom sent a photo. An old one. Me and Sarah as kids, side by side, same height, same smile. I forgot this version of you, she wrote. I didn't respond. Marcus watched me read the message. You don't owe them closure, he said. I know, I replied, but I want peace. That afternoon, Sarah showed up again. She didn't knock this time, just stood outside the door until I opened it. I'm not here to ask for help, she said immediately. Good, I replied. She looked thinner, not physically, just less certain, like the world had shifted under her feet and she hadn't adjusted yet. I got transferred, she said. Different department, smaller team. That's work, I said. It feels like exile, she replied. We stood there in silence. I don't recognize myself, she said finally. Without the titles, without the plans. I crossed my arms. That's not my fault. I know, she said, but I need to say this anyway. I waited. I thought if I kept winning, I'd never lose you, she said. That stopped me. You didn't win, I said quietly. You replaced me. Her eyes filled. I didn't know the difference. Marcus appeared behind me. Sarah stiffened, then relaxed. I'm not here to fight, she said to him. I'm here to accept. He nodded once. That's a start. She looked at me again. I won't come to your wedding. I blinked. Why? Because I'd compare, she said honestly, and I don't want to be that person anymore. I respected that more than I expected. Thank you for saying it out loud, I said. She turned to leave, then paused. You didn't take revenge. No, I replied. I took space. She nodded, as if committing the distinction to memory. That night, Marcus and I finalized the seating. No hierarchy, no strategic placements, just people who knew how to be present. As I closed my laptop, I felt something settle. Not triumph. Balance. 2 weeks before the wedding, Dad asked to meet me alone. No mom, no explanations, just coffee, he said, somewhere quiet. We met at a small place near the river. He arrived early, already seated, hands wrapped around a cup he hadn't touched. When I sat down, he didn't smile. "I'm not here to fix anything," he said. "I know better now." I waited. "I need to say this without you interrupting me," he continued, "because if you do, I'll stop." I nodded once. "I built my sense of worth around outcomes," he said. "Promotions, salaries, what I could point to and say, this means something. Sarah fit that, you didn't, so I treated you like a risk." He swallowed. "When you were born, I promised myself I'd protect you from instability," he said. "Somewhere along the way, I confused protection with control." I watched his hands shake slightly. "I taught Sarah to perform," he went on, "and I taught you to disappear." The words landed hard. "I see now that I didn't raise two daughters," he said quietly. "I raised one mirror and one shadow." I didn't speak. "I don't expect forgiveness," he added, "but I want you to know I understand what I lost." I finally looked at him. "You lost years." He nodded. "I know." Outside, the river moved steadily, indifferent. "I won't come to your wedding if you don't want me there," he said, "and I won't ask again." I stood. "I do want you there." He looked up, surprised. "But not as my judge," I added. "As my father, if you can do that." His eyes filled. "I can." The week passed quickly after that. Sarah sent a short message. "I hope it's beautiful." I replied, "It will be honest." The night before we left for Napa, Marcus packed quietly, efficiently. No nerves, no speeches, just focus. "Are you ready?" he asked. I looked around the apartment, at the life we'd built without permission. "Yes," I said. The vineyard was even more unreal in person. Stone paths, open sky, air that felt deliberate. Guests arrived slowly. Friends, colleagues, people who knew us separately and together. My parents arrived together, reserved, careful, respectful. Sarah didn't come. I noticed the absence, but it didn't hollow the room. Before the ceremony, Marcus took my hands. "I won't make promises I can't keep," he said, "but I'll always choose you first." That was enough. As we stood in the courtyard, sunlight settling over stone and vines, I felt something unfamiliar. Not validation. Permission. And I realized this was the moment where the story stopped being about what was taken from me and started being about what I kept. The wedding didn't change my family. It changed the silence between us. After Napa, things didn't suddenly soften or heal. There were no group messages full of affection, no dramatic reconciliations. What replaced everything was something quieter. Distance with boundaries. Contact without control. We returned home on a Monday. By Tuesday, Sarah texted. I saw the photos. I didn't answer right away. "You looked happy," she added. I replied an hour later. I was. That was all. Dad called once a week after that. Not to advise, not to compare, just to ask how I was. The conversations were short, awkward, real. Mom sent articles less and questions more, about my work, about Marcus, about things that didn't end with a lesson. Sarah stayed quiet. Her wedding happened 3 weeks later. I didn't attend. Neither did my parents. Bradley sent a photo afterward. A simple room, folding chairs, white flowers that looked borrowed rather than chosen. "It's done," he wrote. I stared at the picture, longer than I expected. That night, Sarah called. "I thought I'd feel relieved," she said. "I don't." "What do you feel?" I asked. "Empty," she replied. "Like I spent years building something that collapsed the moment no one was watching." I didn't comfort her, I listened. "They clapped," she continued. "People smiled, but it didn't feel like mine." "That happens," I said, "when the audience matters more than the moment." She exhaled. "You never needed an audience." "That's why I lost so often," I replied. There was a pause. "I don't know how to live without comparison," she admitted. "That's not something I can teach you," I said. "I know." After that, the calls stopped again. Months passed. Work settled, life normalized. Marcus expanded into new markets. I redesigned my freelance business into something steady, something that felt like mine. One afternoon, a package arrived. No return address. Inside was an old photo album. Sarah's handwriting on the first page. I found this while packing. I think it belongs to you. I flipped through it slowly. Childhood photos, margins, moments I didn't remember being recorded. She'd been there the whole time. She just didn't know how to stand beside me. I closed the album and placed it on the shelf. That night Marcus asked, "Do you feel lighter?" I thought about it. "No," I said, "I feel grounded." He smiled. Outside, the city moved forward, not dramatically, not loudly. Just honestly, the call came early, just after sunrise. I knew it was Sarah before I checked the screen. Some instincts don't fade. "I need to tell you something," she said. Her voice sounded steadier than before, but thinner, like she was conserving energy. "Go on," I said. "I resigned," she continued, "yesterday." I sat up. "From Henderson?" "Yes." I waited for the explanation. She didn't rush it. "They offered a path back," she said. "Smaller scope, less visibility. I could have stayed and rebuilt." "And you didn't want to," I said. "No," she replied. "I realized I was still performing, just for a different audience." Silence followed. "I don't know who I am without that job," she added, "but I know I didn't like who I was with it." I let that sit. "Bradley's scared," she said. "We're cutting back, moving to a smaller place." "That sounds practical," I said. She laughed quietly. "Don't tell Mom." I smiled despite myself. "I'm not calling for help," Sarah said quickly. "I'm calling because I didn't want you to hear it from someone else." "I appreciate that," I replied. There was a pause, then, "Do you ever miss it?" "Miss what?" I asked. "Trying to win," she said. I thought about it, about the dinners, the comparisons, the feeling of being measured. "No," I said, "I miss thinking it mattered." She exhaled. "That's what I'm afraid of." Later that afternoon, Mom called. "She quit," she said, as if it were a rumor. "I know." "She says she needs time," Mom continued. "I don't know how to help her." "You don't," I replied. "You let her figure it out." Mom was quiet. "I wish I'd done that with you." I didn't answer. That evening, Marcus and I walked along the river. The air was cool, the water steady. "Do you think she'll be okay?" he asked. "I think she'll be different," I said. "That's not the same thing." He nodded. A week later, Sarah sent a photo. A small desk, a window, and notebook. First day of something new, no title yet. I stared at it, then typed back. "Good luck." She replied with a single word. "Thanks." It wasn't reconciliation. It wasn't closure. But it wasn't nothing. And for the first time, that felt like enough. Life didn't pause to see if we were ready. Work pulled us forward, deadlines, travel, normal things that didn't care about family history. Marcus was in and out of meetings, his company expanding in quiet, controlled ways. I spent long hours designing, building something that didn't feel borrowed from anyone else's expectations. 3 months after Sarah resigned, Dad called. "She's not coping well," he said. I didn't respond right away. "She doesn't regret leaving," he added, "but she doesn't know where she belongs." "That's not an emergency," I said. He sighed. "It feels like one to her." "It felt like one to me for years," I replied. Another silence. "I'm learning not to interfere," Dad said finally. "It's harder than I thought." "I know," I said. A few days later, Sarah called herself. "I didn't think I'd feel this lost," she said. "You never let yourself be," I replied. She laughed softly. "I thought confidence meant certainty." "What does it mean now?" I asked. She hesitated. "Curiosity." That surprised me. She told me about the freelance consulting she was trying. Short contracts, no guarantees, no applause. "I don't hate it," she admitted. "That scares me." "It shouldn't," I said. "It does," she replied, "because there's no finish line." I leaned back in my chair. There never was. That night, Marcus and I hosted dinner for friends. No family, no pressure, just conversation that didn't circle status or achievement. As I watched him move through the room, calm and attentive, I realized something. He never needed to prove anything. That was why he'd unsettled them so deeply. A month later, Sarah sent another message. "I'm thinking about therapy." I stared at it for a moment before replying. That sounds like work. She answered with a laughing emoji, then nothing else. The holidays came quietly. No dramatic gatherings, just separate visits, separate meals, boundaries holding. At one dinner with my parents, Mom asked about my projects without comparing them to Sarah's. Dad listened without correcting. It felt strange. Later, as we stood to leave, Mom said softly, "You seem sure." "I am," I said. In the car, Marcus asked, "Do you think they've changed?" I thought about it. "I think they're trying." "That counts," he said. "Yes," I replied, "as long as they keep trying." That night, I opened the old photo album again. This time, I didn't feel like the extra child. I felt like someone who had outgrown the room. Sarah called on a Sunday afternoon. No warning, no build-up, just her name on the screen. "I need to ask you something," she said as soon as I answered. "Ask," I replied. "I got an offer," she continued. "Small firm, contract work, it's not impressive." "That's not a question," I said. She hesitated. "I don't know if I should take it." I waited. "I keep hearing Dad's voice in my head," she admitted, "telling me it's not enough." I closed my eyes. That voice isn't him anymore, it's habit. She was quiet for a moment. "Do you ever hear it?" "Not lately," I said. "It fades when you stop obeying it." She exhaled. "I'm scared I'll regret choosing something quiet." "You might," I replied, "but you'll regret choosing something false more." Another pause. "Will you be disappointed in me," she asked, "if I don't become what I was?" The question surprised me. "No," I said. "I was disappointed when you chose being better over being fair." She let out a breath that sounded like relief. "I'll take it," she said, "the offer." "That sounds like your decision," I replied. Later that evening, Dad called. "She's changing," he said. "I don't recognize her." "That's the point," I answered. He chuckled softly. "You sound like Marcus." I smiled. A week later, Sarah showed up again. Not frantic, not apologetic, just present. "I won't stay long," she said. "I just wanted to see how you live." I stepped aside to let her in. She looked around the apartment slowly, not with envy, with curiosity. "It's calm," she said. "It's honest," I replied. She nodded. I think I confused noise with meaning. We sat at the table, no speeches, no rehashing. "I don't expect us to be close," she said, "but I don't want to compete anymore." "That's a good place to stop," I said. She smiled faintly. "I don't know how to be a sister without a scoreboard." "You'll learn," I replied, "or you won't. Either way, I'm done racing." She stood to leave an hour later. At the door, she paused. "You didn't save me." "No," I said, "you did." She nodded once and left. Marcus came out of the bedroom. "That went well." "It went honestly," I replied. That night, I realized something important. I didn't need her to change for me. I needed her to stop needing me to lose. And that finally had happened. The shift didn't announce itself. It settled in quietly. Weeks passed without drama. No emergency calls, no sudden visits. Sarah started her contract work and kept it to herself. When she did mention it, it was factual, not performative. No titles, no comparisons. Dad stopped offering advice unless it was asked for. Mom learned how to sit in conversations without steering them. It wasn't graceful, but it was different. One evening, Marcus and I hosted dinner again. This time, we invited my parents. No speeches, no catching up, just food and conversation. Dad talked about the river restoration project he'd volunteered for. Mom mentioned a book she was reading. When they asked about my work, they listened without redirecting. I noticed the effort. After dessert, Dad said, "We won't stay long." That mattered more than he knew. A few days later, Sarah texted. "I finished my first project. Client paid on time." I replied, "Nice." She sent another message. It felt earned. I stared at the screen before responding. "That's different," I wrote. She reacted with a simple thumbs up. The family group chat stayed quiet. No forced updates, no announcements, just space. Marcus noticed it too. "They're letting things exist," he said. "They're learning how," I replied. That weekend, Sarah and Bradley invited us to lunch. Neutral location, no expectations. She looked different again, not lighter, just less armored. Bradley talked about budgeting, about learning to say no to things that didn't make sense. He sounded relieved. I thought stability meant impressing people, he said. Turns out it means sleeping. Marcus smiled. That tracks. Sarah laughed, genuinely this time. Halfway through the meal, she looked at me. I don't feel ahead anymore. How does that feel? I asked. Strange, she said, but quieter. I nodded. Quiet isn't failure. She absorbed that. After lunch, as we stood to leave, she said, I don't think we'll ever be equal. I met her eyes. We already are. She smiled, unsure but trying. That night, Marcus and I sat on the balcony. City lights below, no urgency. Do you think this lasts? He asked. I think it changes, I said, and that's enough. My phone buzzed once more before bed. A message from Sarah. Thank you for not rescuing me. I typed back. Thank you for not competing with me. I set the phone down and felt something settle fully for the first time. Not peace. Stability. The kind that doesn't need to be announced. The consequences didn't end all at once. They thinned out, like fog lifting in patches. Dad sold the second car, not because he had to, but because he wanted to. He said it made things simpler. Mom started volunteering 2 mornings a week at a literacy center. She didn't talk about it much, which told me it mattered. Sarah kept her contract work quiet. No announcements, no LinkedIn posts. When she talked about it, it was specific and small. What she'd learned, what she'd messed up, what she might do next. Bradley took a pay cut to move into a role with less travel. He said it out loud once, then never brought it up again. At a family dinner in late spring, something subtle happened. Dad asked me a question and didn't interrupt the answer. Mom asked Sarah a question and didn't correct it. Sarah listened when I spoke and didn't compare. The room felt unfamiliar, not warm, just neutral. And neutrality, I realized, was progress. After dinner, as plates were cleared, Dad said, I've been thinking about that night. I waited. I thought losing control meant losing authority, he continued. Turns out it just means losing the illusion. No one responded. He didn't need reassurance. Later, Mom pulled me aside in the kitchen. I still catch myself, she said, ranking, measuring. What do you do then? I asked. I stop, she said, sometimes too late, sometimes in time. That was enough. A week later, Sarah called with news. They offered me a longer contract, she said. Still small, still quiet. How do you feel about it? I asked. Capable, she replied. That's new. I smiled. That same week, Marcus turned down a speaking engagement. Too much travel, not enough interest. I don't need more visibility, he said. I need margin. I understood that now. At the end of the month, Dad invited us over. No agenda, no event. When we arrived, the house looked the same, but it felt different. Fewer framed achievements, more empty wall space. I took some things down, Mom said, noticing my glance. They were doing too much talking. We ate, we talked, we left early. In the car, Marcus said, they're rebuilding from the inside. Yes, I said, without asking permission. That night, I realized something important. The family I had wanted didn't appear. The family I had needed stepped back. And in that space, something functional formed. Not perfect, but real. Time didn't fix anything. It clarified it. By summer, routines had settled. Not traditions, not rituals, just habits that didn't bruise anymore. Calls came without urgency. Visits ended on time. No one tracked who was doing better. Sarah sent occasional updates, short ones. Client renewed. Learning taxes the hard way. Still bad at resting. I replied when I could, no advice. Dad stopped narrating outcomes. He talked about process instead, what he tried, what failed, what surprised him. It sounded unfamiliar coming from him, but sincere. Mom learned how to ask questions without following them with suggestions. Sometimes she caught herself mid-sentence and stopped. We all noticed. No one pointed it out. One evening, Sarah invited us over. Small apartment, second-hand furniture. a table that wobbled if you leaned on it too hard. I like it, I said honestly. She smiled. It doesn't impress anyone. That's the point, Marcus said. Dinner was simple, nothing plated, nothing curated. Halfway through, Sarah said, I don't feel behind anymore. Behind what? I asked. She thought about it, a version of myself that wasn't real. After dinner, Bradley washed dishes without commentary. He looked relaxed in a way I hadn't seen before. I sleep better, he said quietly. Turns out anxiety is expensive. Marcus nodded. It compounds. As we left, Sarah walked me to the door. I don't expect us to be close, she said, but I'm glad we're adjacent. I smiled. Adjacency works. A month later, Dad asked for help with something small. Not money, not connections, a decision. I don't need you to solve it, he said. I just want another perspective. That was new. We talked it through. He listened. He chose something different than what I suggested. That was fine too. Afterward, Marcus said, that took discipline. Yes, I replied, for all of us. Near the end of summer, Sarah sent one more message. I think I finally understand what you meant about space. I didn't ask her to explain. That night, sitting on the balcony, I realized I wasn't waiting anymore. Not for apologies, not for proof, not for fairness to arrive late. Everything that needed to shift had already shifted. Quietly, the last change didn't feel like a moment. It felt like a day that passed without tension. We gathered for Sarah's birthday in early fall, nothing formal, just dinner at my parents' house. No speeches, no expectations. I noticed it as soon as I walked in. The house wasn't arranged to impress. The table wasn't overloaded. No one was performing. Sarah arrived late. She looked comfortable, not rushed. Bradley followed with a bag of groceries instead of a gift bag. Traffic, she said, shrugging. Dad nodded, sit wherever. That alone told me how far we'd come. Dinner moved easily. Conversations overlapped. No one kept score. When Sarah talked about her work, no one asked what it led to. When I talked about mine, no one redirected. At one point, Mom laughed at something Marcus said and didn't explain why she was laughing. She just let it happen. After dessert, Dad raised his glass. Not for a toast, just to take a sip. Then he said, I'm glad you're all here. Nothing else. No comparisons, no pride speeches, no lessons. We stayed an hour longer than usual. Then we left without guilt. In the car, Marcus reached for my hand. That felt normal. Yes, I said, finally. The weeks that followed were quiet in the best way. Sarah didn't disappear, but she didn't orbit me either. We existed alongside each other without friction. When she called, it was to share something small. When I called, she answered without defensiveness. Dad stopped trying to repair the past. Mom stopped rewriting it. One evening, Sarah texted. I don't feel like I'm chasing anymore. I stared at the message for a moment. Neither am I replied. She sent back a single heart, not dramatic, just there. That night, Marcus and I sat together, not talking, just present. I thought about the envelope, the dinner, the moment everything cracked open. I realized something important. Nothing was restored. Something new had formed. Not closeness, not distance. Balance. And that was enough. The story didn't end with forgiveness or triumph. It ended with alignment, with people standing where they belonged instead of reaching for what wasn't theirs. When I went to bed that night, I didn't replay old conversations. I didn't rehearse explanations. I slept. And in the quiet, I knew this chapter was finished. You have reached the end of the text.